How do you create a successful business and a fulfilling life? In 2020, after leaving the corporate world once and for all, I founded my digital agency that replaced a six-figure income within just the first few months. Since then, I've coached thousands of entrepreneurs across the globe to do the same. Now I'm on a mission to teach others how an exceptional life is not only possible, but very achievable through entrepreneurship. Join me in this podcast as I interview industry experts to learn the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of what it takes to become a great business owner, and share some of the lessons I've learned along the way as well. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive in. So after the last few years, I have spent a lot of time looking for ways to become as efficient as possible, as productive as possible, because at the end of the day, especially as an entrepreneur, your ability to increase your amount of pay is directly correlated to how productive you can be with your time, right? So kind of to give some context around that, that's one of the big reasons that I initially wanted to be an entrepreneur, is because in the corporate world or in a regular 9-to-5, you are capped at the amount of pay that your role entails, right? And I mean, depending on your employer, but especially in the corporate world, they're going to pay you based off of what is considered competitive pay for your position. That's great, but it's probably going to be capped around 80,000 a year, 100,000 a year, 150,000 a year. And if you're lucky on the executive side, maybe 200 to 20,000, per year. That never sat well with me, which is why I really ultimately, wanted to start my own business, and why I moved forward with that. Not only to create a limitless method or process for generating income myself and for my family, but to also provide the ability for others that I am working with, individuals on my team, to do the same. As an entrepreneur, it is extremely important to become as efficient and effective as you possibly can, because in a 9-to-5 or in the corporate world, if you want to increase your pay, you put together, a case for why you deserve a promotion. You take it to your boss and you say, hey, look, I feel that I deserve a promotion. This is what I would like to be paid. And you negotiate that and prove that you deserve that, right? Well, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you don't have a boss to, go ask for a raise from. So instead, what you do is you become more efficient with the way that you are spending your time. We've all heard this saying that we all have, the same 12 hours, the same 24 hours in a day. I don't know if I actually agree with that, because especially when you are scaling a business, my time, I'll use this morning as an example. My time can be multiplied by my team, right? I had a training this morning with one of our team members who is becoming an account manager. And typically, during that 1 hour time span in the morning, I'm going through and updating a couple of different things for new clients. But because this team member is learning and falling into, taking on the responsibility for this role, she was able to take that responsibility, update those new clients, and take care of that task while I was able to do something else, right? So yes, it's still the same 1 hour that everyone has, but the productivity was multiplied on the ability to delegate, on the ability to be more efficient, on the ability to have processes in place, right? So anyways, why am I saying all of this? Why am I talking about all of this? Over the years, I have probably tried hundreds of different methods for becoming more efficient, becoming more productive, planning my day, planning out goals, doing different things to try to stay on track, keep the focus, and achieve more and make continuous improvement. And in that time, I've used and I've probably utilized, I don't even know how many, lots and lots and lots of different planners that are, pitched as being productivity planners. And there's been a couple that, I've liked more than others, that have helped for a little bit, but I've found that ultimately I have not been able to find one that I actually like enough to keep using over and over and over again. In fact, the opposite, it either doesn't have the features or the outlines that I need to stay on track, or it is overly complicated. It's a planner that is overly complicated that takes like an hour to fill out every day for your day just to, keep everything on track. And in my mind, that is an oxymoron, because why would you use a planner that costs you more time, right? Trying to do the opposite. So I have, over the past, I'd say about 6 months or so, I've been creating my own method for staying on track on a daily basis, staying on track with my schedule, staying on track with the top priorities, with my to-do list, with things to delegate, and doing this in a way that I've found helps me to stay on track, but also to keep my big rock goals, or the big overarching goals, front of mind. And I am actually in the process of getting this planner ready for publication so that I can have it printed off. It's really for myself, right? So I can print it off and use it for myself on a regular basis instead of just writing it down in my notebook every day, right? But I'm excited about this. And the reason that I wanted to do this episode is because I've taken different parts of things that I have learned from other types of productivity planners, other types of methods, and really created something that is very simple, very easy to use on a daily basis, but also helps to grow, scale your business and to grow and build yourself as a leader, and as a leader over your business. So I wanted to walk through some of those things today in this episode that you can, number one, take away from this episode and use to help make your time more productive. But also, two, let's talk about, this power planner a little bit. And if that's something that you feel would be useful for you, it will be available soon. Okay, so let's talk about some of these pieces. So the very first, and if you know me, you've probably heard me talk about this, but the very first piece that I believe is important to becoming a successful business owner is understanding how to make decisions the right way. So in this power planner, I've included a couple of different sections that will cover information about how to make decisions the right way, how to use time management tools, how to create a forecast for your business. So outlining and planning for, 3 months at a time over the year, mapping out and planning your team members' roles, their job descriptions, compensation, and looking at what those tasks look like. Also have included items or ideas of how to outsource or delegate different things that you are doing as a business owner that you can, delegate out, or that you can automate even to make your time more valuable. There's also included a link for some of the top business books, some of the top business podcasts, and then, of course, blank pages so that you can strategize things out. But one thing that I do want to talk about a little bit on this episode in particular, is the cycle of improvement. Okay, so this is something that I've included a section in the planner, but especially recently, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot because it is a cycle that every single one of us goes through, whether in our personal life, in our professional life, right? Whatever it is. And it can be applied. And I think that it's also important to be aware and acknowledge the different stages that we might be in for a couple of reasons. One, to be intentional about it, but also two, to give ourselves grace, right? Because not every stage of life 100% of the time is just, rainbows and butterflies, right? It is actually really important that in our life or in our business that we are going through different experiences to help us get to the next level. Okay. So this cycle has a couple of different quadrants. So the first is planning. The second is doing. The third is checking. And the fourth is acting. Okay, so I'm going to go through these and talk about each one. So the very first, plan. That is when we have a situation that we have been able to identify some type of problem with. Okay, so we've been able to identify, and I'll use this in two different ways or perspectives, right? Maybe it's identifying a problem within your business of like starting out, hey, I need to make more money. So that's my problem. I've got to create a plan of how I'm going to bring in revenue for my business to make more money. Okay. Maybe on the personal side, you're in a toxic relationship and you identify the problem and you say, this is not healthy for me. And I need to create a plan of how I'm going to get out of this toxic situation, right? Plan. You're really acknowledging what the problem might be and beginning to create or formulate some type of plan to cope with that. Now, the second step is doing. So in doing, you are starting to put that plan into action. You're starting to test possible solutions. You're starting to, take a couple of steps forward, taking that action, building momentum, right? And making those moves towards what it is you are wanting to solve. Okay. The third piece is checking. So this is kind of, in my mind, this is kind of the phase where you're like stepping back a little bit and just watching of how is this folding out? How is this working? Is it going well? Do I continue in this same pathway, in the same direction? Or do I need to pivot a little bit? Do I need to make some changes? Do I need to make some, little tweaks to what I am doing? And then the fourth phase is called act, or implementing of the best option. So it's really a stage where we can take the information that we have learned or that we have recognized through this process and make those improvements that we need to make and implement them, right? So it's really like the second level up from that first do when we're testing possible solutions. So you're implementing these things. This is oftentimes where you're making a process that is consistent, that is something that is reliable, that is something that is a healthier version. So back to our example, right? On the business side, this would be the point when you're saying, okay, I have found a product or an offering that my clients really like. And I have found a way to pitch that in a way that people respond to. So I am now continuing with that process, moving forward with it, right? On the personal side, maybe you have decided to leave this toxic relationship, and through your testing and through through checking and verifying the effectiveness of this plan, you have realized that there are actually some very healthy boundaries that you need to set for yourself so that you can level up and not fall into that situation again, right? So that would be this part of the phase, is continuing at that next level, right? Now, what's interesting, or what's kind of cool about this cycle, is that it repeats, right? And it repeats at the next level. So I had a friend of mine, business mentor that many of you know. His name is Jeff Lerner. And he showed this at a presentation that he did a year ago, where he was talking about this type of cycle that we go through, right? And he said, think of it this way. It's not necessarily something linear like this. Think of it more as a spiral, taking it, putting it down like this. And for those on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing. For those on the podcast, I guess, imagine. But you're turning it on its side and looking at it more as a spiral. So as you go through the steps, as you go through the different pieces of planning identifying the problem, testing possible solutions, checking the effectiveness, and then acting with the best option. Then you go up to the next level, right? And it becomes this spiral where then again, there's new problems that you can identify. You test possible solutions for those, you check the effectiveness, and then you continue forward with the best option. And then, you're on the next level, and it kind of spirals up over time, right? And it's really interesting because even when there is maybe a wrench thrown into our process or into our plans, and maybe, something doesn't go the way that we anticipated, maybe, there's a big learning lesson, or some might call it a mistake, but I call it a learning lesson, right? That comes in. That does not mean that your growth stops. In fact, that is a very important part of the process, right? Those learning situations fall into the phase of testing possible solutions, verifying the effectiveness, right? It's simply a part of the process. It's simply part of the process of continuing to improve. So that was really impactful for me when I learned and understood the cycle of continuous improvement. I hope that's as effective and as powerful for you. And if it is, if that resonates, or if you are like me and have been on the search for some type of power planner that will help you become a better entrepreneur, better business owner, and more organized and more efficient with your time on a day-to-day basis, check out the planner. It will be available in the show notes linked below this episode. Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind. If you took away any little golden nuggets or took down a mental note of any pieces that you loved from this episode, it would mean so much to me if you wouldn't mind sharing this with a friend, sharing it on your social media, or if you feel so inclined, rate and review this podcast. That is the best way to show your love and support and to get the podcast out there to more listeners. So I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you on the next episode.